Hello, my name is Sage Bell, and today I'm going to be discussing drug testing. I plan to cover the definition of drug testing, as well as a few other objectives such as the history and origin, the value of drug testing and workplace issues, notable cases of failing drug tests, drug-free workplace resources, drug testing in schools, and the pros and cons. The definition of drug tests. An examination of biologic material such as urine, hair, saliva, or sweat to detect the presence of specific drugs and determine prior drug use. Drug tests may be performed to detect illicit drug use, as well as the use of drugs and substances not permitted in specific occupations or athletic competitions, also known as drug screen. In 1986, the Reagan administration began recommending a drug testing program for employers as part of the War on Drugs program. In 1988, drug-free workplace regulations required that any company with a contract over $25,000 with the federal government provide a drug-free workplace. This program must include drug testing. In December, the Omnibus Transportation Employee Testing Act of 1991 required drug and alcohol testing of safety-sensitive employees in aviation, trucking, railroads, mass transit, and pipelines. These industries included Federal Aviation Administration, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, Maritime, Pipeline, Federal Railroad Administration, and the Federal Transit Authority. According to the Department of Transportation data, the number of workers who are subject to drug testing is approximately 6 million. Private employers also saw the value of drug testing and instituted drug-free workplace programs. Today, approximately 62% of all employers in the United States have mandatory drug testing programs. Several states have initiated legislation that rewards employers who institute drug testing for employees. They receive discounts on workers' compensation premiums if they comply with state drug testing requirements. In 2008, approximately 50 million drug screens were performed on employees by 40 different certified laboratories. A study in 2007 estimated that 19.9 million Americans over the age of 12 used illegal drugs. This is 8% of the total U.S. population. Marijuana was the most popular drug used by 14.4 million Americans. Roughly 33% of Americans admitted to using drugs 20 or more times each month. In 2004, the American Management Association conducted surveys from employers, and 62% required drug testing for their employees. This means that 1 out of every 12 households admitted to using illicit drugs. Approximately 126.8 million Americans consume alcohol. Nearly 23.8 admitted to having 5 or more drinks on occasion. Also, roughly 6% of people 12 years of age and older admitted to using drugs within 2 hours of consuming alcohol. Drug abuse is a very serious problem in the United States. In terms of new job applicants, 1 out of every 20 applicants tested positive for drugs. A recent study reported that those most likely to use drugs are employed by businesses with fewer than 500 employees. The benefits of drug-free work environments include reduced health benefits, reduced insurance premiums, less absences, and increased worker productivity. Employers have seen a decrease in workplace accidents, employee mistakes, employee turnover, and in those worker compensation claims. Other less tangible benefits include improved workplace environment, employee morale, and customer satisfaction. The U.S. Department of Labor reported that drug abuse has been estimated to cost American businesses $81 billion in lost productivity in 1 year, $37 billion due to premature death, and $44 billion due to illnesses. 86% of those costs are attributed to drinking. It is evident how these unethical decisions made in the workplace have devastating consequences. For as long as there have been sports, there has always been athletes who show exceptional talent. Each sport has their own policy and rule for what is allowed and what isn't. Athletes are held to a high standard and are tested to make sure there are no substances in their system. Some athletes make immoral decisions to try and have an advantage over other athletes and end up ruining their careers. Lance Armstrong is a well-known example. He tested positive for drugs in his system and was disgraced and stripped of his titles. Marion Jones is another great example. She was regarded as the greatest female athlete and later stripped of 5 Olympic gold medals for sprinting. She was also banned for life and later went bankrupt. To develop a drug-free workplace, employers must follow certain steps. Policies are set up to ensure employees, vendors, and customers are not taking or using alcohol or drugs. A drug-free work environment also encourages those employees with addictions to seek help, recover, and then return to work. To enforce a drug-free work environment, there must be active, visible leadership by all company leaders. Policies must be very clear and publicized. There are methods of assistance for employees that voluntarily admit to having a substance abuse problem. There will be disciplinary action for employees using substances and causing problems that impact the workplace and/or coworkers. Drug testing in schools. Students participating in extracurricular activities are subject to random drug testing. When there's suspicion, a student can be asked to provide a urine sample. School administrators are expected to maintain a healthy, safe, and supportive environment for learning. These measures are taken in an attempt to identify students with possible substance abuse issues and intervene early. Tolerance policies grew out of the war on drugs approach in the 1990s. Today, schools and administrators use the policies with the intentions of identifying students who may have substance addictions and referring them to treatment. Sometimes, dismissal from extracurricular activities or expulsion are the consequences. There are no federal laws regarding school-based drug testing. There are 2 Supreme Court cases that grant public schools the authority to conduct drug testing in certain circumstances. First, in 1995, the court ruled it was legal for schools to randomly test student athletes. Later, in 2002, that ruling was expanded to include students who participate in competitive extracurricular activities such as chess or band. The pros of drug testing in school include the early detection and intervention. Students have more reason to resist peer pressure, maintaining a drug-free environment, and increases the chances for a successful future. The cons include testing is expensive, and students are able to cheat and bring in someone else's urine. Some studies show that school districts that use these programs do not have lower reports of drug usage. Others find there is in fact a link between drug testing and a reduced report of drug usage. And here are all my references. Thank you for listening.